Africa is rewriting its global relationship status, moving from dependency to agency. For decades, the West was Africa's main partner, offering aid, advice, and plenty of strings attached. Now, African nations are seeking new partners and setting their own terms, impacting everything from global supply chains to international diplomacy. With over 1.4 billion people and vast resources, Africa's choices are shaping the world's future. Leaders are tired of double standards and are demanding respect, not lectures. The old script is gone. Africa is now a key author of the world's next chapter. Africa's relationship with the West has long been defined by inequality and dependency. Colonial legacies and aid programs often came with strict conditions, limiting true sovereignty. Structural adjustment policies forced cuts to vital services, deepening poverty and resentment. Trade deals like AGOA favored raw exports, keeping most value and wealth outside Africa. For generations, policies were designed in Western capitals, reinforcing a paternalistic dynamic. While some aid helped, the overarching theme was control, not partnership. This history fuels Africa's hunger for new, more balanced relationships. The split with the West didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, simmering process, fueled by years of mounting frustrations and unmet expectations. African leaders, once eager for partnership, began to question whether the relationship was truly equal, or just another form of dependency dressed up as cooperation. One of the biggest sticking points was energy. Western governments refused to fund African fossil fuel projects, citing climate concerns, even as they continued to rely on oil and gas at home. To many Africans, this felt not just hypocritical, but deeply unfair. A double standard that put Western priorities above African needs. The reality on the ground is stark. Hundreds of millions of Africans still live without reliable electricity. For them, the promise of a green transition is a distant dream, not an immediate solution. They need power now, for schools, hospitals, and businesses. Change can't happen overnight, and leapfrogging to renewables isn't always practical. Meanwhile, as the US shifted its focus from aid to commerce, it left a vacuum. African nations, no longer content to wait for Western approval or charity, began to look elsewhere, toward China, the Middle East, and other emerging partners eager to invest without lectures. Today, African leaders are asserting their right to choose their own path. They're prioritizing economic growth, energy security, and the well-being of their people over outside opinions. The message is clear. Africa will decide what's best for Africa. The West's lectures about development and democracy are increasingly drowned out by the sound of new roads, bridges, and power plants, often funded by non-Western partners who see Africa's potential, not just its problems. Across the continent, a new spirit of pragmatism is taking hold. African entrepreneurs, farmers, and innovators are choosing practical solutions over paternalistic advice, building a future that works for them. Africa is no longer waiting for permission or validation from the West. The continent is writing its own rules, forging its own destiny, and showing the world that it's ready to lead on its own terms. As Africa grew weary of Western conditions and the strings often attached to foreign aid, a new player emerged on the continent's stage. For decades, Western countries had dictated the terms of engagement, often insisting on political reforms, economic restructuring, and strict oversight. Many African leaders and citizens began to question whether these conditions truly served their interests or simply perpetuated dependency and frustration. Then, China arrived with blueprints and billions. Unlike the West, China's approach was refreshingly straightforward: build infrastructure, avoid political lectures, and focus on business. Chinese delegations came not with demands for governance changes, but with offers to construct roads, railways, and power plants, projects that promised immediate, tangible benefits. Through the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, billions of dollars began to flow into the continent, funding ambitious projects that had long been stalled by lack of investment. These agreements were often signed with fanfare, signaling a new era of partnership. The money built modern highways that connected cities, deep-water ports that opened new trade routes, and power plants that brought electricity to millions. These projects were not just symbols, they were engines of economic growth. For many African leaders, China's non-interference policy was a breath of fresh air. They could pursue development on their own terms, without external pressure to change their political systems. The results were visible everywhere: gleaming highways, bustling airports, and expanding power grids that transformed daily life for millions. Children could study at night, businesses could operate more efficiently, and cities began to thrive. Yet, concerns lingered about mounting debt, transparency in deals, and whether enough local jobs were being created. Still, for many Africans, the benefits of new infrastructure, jobs, and economic opportunities seemed to outweigh the risks. The continent was changing rapidly, and China was at the heart of that transformation. Today, China stands as Africa's top builder and trade partner, with its presence visible in every major city and construction site. The partnership has redefined Africa's development path. Faced with a choice between a lecture and a loan, between conditions and construction, African leaders are making pragmatic decisions for their country's futures. More and more are choosing the loan, betting that partnership with China will help build the foundations for a brighter, more independent future. Africa's infrastructure gap is massive, stretching from roads and railways to ports and power grids. For decades, this gap has held back economic growth and regional integration. But now, new partners are moving fast to fill it. Across the continent, cranes and bulldozers are a common sight, as countries race to modernize and connect their economies. China leads the way, funding everything from hydro dams to coal plants, while Western investment often stalls or comes with more conditions. Chinese companies are not just building infrastructure, they're also training local workers and transferring technology, creating a new dynamic in Africa's development story. Major projects like Nigeria's ambitious gas pipelines are reshaping regional energy and trade, promising to link West Africa to Europe and North Africa. These pipelines could transform energy access for millions, while also making Africa a key player in global energy markets. Africa's energy demand is soaring, driven by rapid urbanization and a growing middle class. Leaders want all options on the table, not just renewables, but also natural gas, hydro, and even coal, to power their economies and create jobs. China's trade deals now offer tariff-free access for dozens of African products, aiming for more balanced trade. This is opening new markets for African farmers and manufacturers, and encouraging investment in value-added industries. African nations want to export finished goods, not just raw materials. They're investing in factories, training workers, and building supply chains to move up the value ladder and capture more of the profits from their resources. The drive for industrialization is fueling a global competition for Africa's partnership. Countries from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East are all vying for a stake in Africa's future, offering investment, technology, and expertise. The continent is shopping for partners who will help it build, not just extract. Africa's leaders are making it clear: the future belongs to those who invest in its people, its industries, and its long-term growth. New economic ties are shifting Africa's political alliances. African nations are less likely to follow the West in global forums, prioritizing their own interests. China is building influence by training African leaders and military officers in its governance model. The US is trying to counter with business summits and tech partnerships, but the game has changed. Africa is playing powers off each other, tracking promises, and demanding transparency. The continent is not swapping one master for another, it's diversifying for leverage. Africa is now a major player, not just the playing field. These global shifts are transforming daily life across Africa. New roads, airports, and power plants mean jobs, faster trade, and better access to services. Investment has boosted economies, but often brings foreign labor and limited local skill transfer. The focus on raw materials risks repeating old patterns of wealth extraction. Culturally, Africa's cities are becoming more diverse, and civil society is demanding transparency. The new era brings both opportunity and risk, debt, environmental concerns, and governance challenges. The real test: ensuring benefits reach ordinary people, not just elites. Africa's future depends on using its new agency wisely. Experts agree, Western dominance in Africa is over, but the future is wide open. Some blame the West's rigid energy policies for driving Africa toward China. Others see a chance for the US to reset relations through trade and innovation. Security analysts warn of China's influence on governance and democracy. The real story: African leaders are savvy, diversifying partners and maximizing leverage. Africa's future will be decided by Africans, on their own terms. Africa is rewriting its story, one of ambition, agency, and strategic choice. Turning from old patrons, African nations are embracing a multipolar world with real options. Leaders want respect, partnership, and the freedom to set their own priorities. The risks of debt and dependency are real, but so is the opportunity for unprecedented growth. For the first time, Africa can leverage global competition to build its own future. The world must listen to Africa's new voice, because it's shaping the century ahead. To understand tomorrow, pay attention to Africa today.